There's kind of two accents in Australia. It's kind of Australian and then like more Australian. And so the real kind of like Crocodile Dundee kind of accent. That's
I love it.
yeah, the further north and the more rural you get, the accent just gets stronger and stronger. And here in Sydney and Melbourne, most of us have just come from England. So most of us have we're expats. So yeah, I love Canada to bits, by the way. I came to Canada on my honeymoon as part of my honeymoon. I just thought it was a lovely place.
Oh, wonderful.
But I know it's a very big country, and and one part of Canada is probably very, very different. You're in Ontario.
Right. I haven't even done it all.
No, I bet. Yeah. You're in Ontario, yeah?
In Ontario, raised in Quebec. Yes. And I flew a lot of big cities, but not all the little quaint places.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, hence the French thing. I had a lady from Quebec on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, actually, which was lots of fun.
Oh,
beautiful. Awesome. Well, hey, let's get into it. You feeling good? You ready to go?
Ready to go.
Awesome. We're live already, but I'm just going to get the little intro going. So we're officially in rather than just this little small talk bit. Okay. Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm very honored to be joined by our third Canadian guest in not a very long period of time, Julie Greenham. She's a nature enthusiast. She's a mother of two, a parent of two, just like me. And she helps introverted business owners to ditch the fear, to build their courage and sell their products with ease. Julie Greenham, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Alex. Nice to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I've got to say, I'm really, really impressed by just your branding and your website and your podcast. And I'd love to get into it. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Excellent. So basically, I want to just touch on quickly, you're a big fan of healthy cooking. You said on your website that you're into sort of testing recipes, vegan food, all this. Talk to us about your passion with healthy food.
Well, that came when I decided, for a long time, I did not know how to cook. And then I wanted to be more healthy, having more kids. I thought I should lead by example here. So I started doing that. And then so I was vegan for a long time. And then during the pandemic, I decided I was craving meat. I don't know if it's because we were inside all the time. And I just started eating meat again, and it felt really good. But it has to be grass-fed and everything, sustainable farm and all of that stuff. So, but I still enjoy cooking.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more on the meat thing, actually. I'm a relatively carnivorous person, but really, really big on, if we're going to do it, we've got to be buying the highest quality we can for ourselves and for the animals as well. We kind of think that in our house, the more money we put into the pockets of the farmers doing the right thing, the better, rather than just boycotting them altogether. That's kind of our opinion on the matter. So, and we want to go and get a farm one day as well. So I imagine in those Canadian winters, you just need a bit of cheese every now and then.
Cheese and the beef.
Casserole to get through those sub 30-degree temperatures or whatever it is. Sounds pretty crazy over there. Okay, so sweet. So you're an introvert coach. This is something that you're a mindset and business coach for people who are on the introverted side. And it's funny because I mentioned to you just before we started that I've recently started working with a couple called the Introvert Mentors out of Ireland. And you said there's actually a bunch of these introvert coaches around. So for the people who don't have a great idea, what is an introvert?
Yes, good question. So the difference between, somebody coined this, and I don't know if it's Simon Sinek or he mentioned it from someone else, but basically an introvert wakes up in the morning, they have 5 coins in their hands, and every time they interact with someone else, they just give a little bit of that energy. They give a coin away. At the end of the day, they're just completely depleted of energy. It's not because they don't like people. It's not because they are shy, none of that. And so in opposition to that, an extrovert is someone who has no coins in the morning. Every time they interact with someone, they just gain coins. So that energy of other people fills them up. So that would be a good way to differentiate shape. We just need that time to recharge. We're in our heads a lot. That creates perfectionism and all of those things that can affect our business when we're running it.
That's such a good analogy. And I suppose the obvious question you would get asked is, why on earth would you go into coaching then when so much of your time is giving energy to people and hearing and helping with their problems? How have you found that journey, and how are you managing that sort of those energy levels throughout the day?
I think it's really knowing, I mean, we all have different energies throughout the day. We're all productive in different ways. And so even at the beginning of my own coaching, I did not realize that you want to help everybody anytime that you can. So I would my schedule would be wide open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then sometimes I would have back to back to back people. And then I would think, oh my goodness, I'm ending this day transitioning to needing energy for my own family and my own kids. And it was just exhausting. So just realizing that you can batch certain tasks that are sort of the same, or that, when you're seeing clients and coaching them, and then sometimes you're doing a bit of admin work, sometimes you're doing video, just managing your time in a realistic way. That really helped me, just knowing when are my peak times of productivity and not.
That is huge, actually. We talk about that a bit on the show from time to time, because I've recently started blocking out my calendar on Fridays. I don't do calls on Fridays because I was finding that I've got a done for you service. I've got a team. I run a couple of coaching programs. Every phone call just puts another item on my to-do list, basically. So I was coming into 4 p.m. one day and not being able to think about having a weekend with my daughters and my wife, my to-do growing. So I've out Fridays to just kind of tick things off, and it's been enormous. My next step, I'll do the same thing on Tuesdays as well, so I can get Monday catch-ups, Tuesday implement, and then kind of start again, because I'm in a similar boat to you. We've got to have that energy for the family. How old are your two kids?
My kids are 11 and 8, so they're a little bit more independent than they used to be, but they still required you, just a bit in a different way.
100%. I bet they ask a lot of questions. They have a lot of demands when they're 8 years old. They start wanting you to buy them things. Yeah, goodness me. Sounds full on. I have two 2-year-olds. I have twin 2-year-olds.
Woo!
So twin 2-year-old girls. So they're not kind of they're demanding, but they don't kind of have the wherewithal to ask questions yet, which is a blessing in disguise, I guess.
Yes, for them it's that physical energy. You need to be present with that. You need to have the energy to be with them physically.
Yeah,
watch them and do things with them. And
100%, 100%. And we come across a lot of my wife's incredible in these periods of kind of growth for my business, where I'm kind of like working a little more than I intended, and she's an absolute monster. She's out there with them. She's still singing songs at like 4 p.m. Like, how do you do this? So let's stay on energy for a bit, because I know I was scrolling through like some of your podcasts, some of your tips on your website, and you're pretty big on protecting your energy, like you just said, to help run a successful business. Some of your podcasts, they were touching on how to set your business up for the holidays, and calendar tips and auto response, and you're big on the morning routine to give yourself energy through the day. How do you think this kind of hip hop, Gary Vaynerchuk, grind and hustle mindset is actually holding people back from creating a better business in the long term?
I mean, it's so easy to fall into that hustle mentality. I think we all forget. I love Gary Vee. I really, really do. However, I do not have the capacity or the type of team to be doing 25 videos on TikTok. That is not the way I operate. But I think knowing, having those boundaries in place, knowing the needs that we have, I think we're really good at, trying to keep busy, which is very different than being productive, trying to achieve more with less time, having things being automated. And that comes with time. We can't really set all that up at the beginning. I think you start to work in a way where sometimes at the beginning, especially a lot of coaches they burn out so quickly, and they give so much of themselves, and they They try to do it all with content creation, marketing, serving clients, and you need that peaceful rest to recharge. And most especially for introverts as well, or any sort of quiet business owners, whether you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, you need really that extra time. You can't go from thing to thing to thing and doing and not, it's sort of like the infinity loop. You need some time for yourself, then you can give. It really works out that way, or else we just burn out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think what's cool about Gary Vee is that he actually admits sometimes that he's not normal, which is helpful. He's like, I'm a freak. I'll work, until 2 a.m., but I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. And he also says that some of my happiest friends work 38 hours a week and then go and coach their kids' baseball team, that sort of thing. I like the fact that he does that rather than just that 24/7 is the only way to get there. Burn the boats, back yourself into a corner, grind. It's like, I'm sure it works for some people, and like all power to them. For me, it's not really the goal, but I do know some people like that. So I thought that was interesting as an introvert who you have to manage your energy, how you felt about that. So you touched on delegating and automating. What were the first things that you started to delegate in your business when you got busier?
Well, that is a question that I figured out a couple years in, when I was completely overwhelmed. And some people were saying, I had hired coaches and were saying, you should delegate to someone else. I mean, why are you spending your time doing things that you don't need to do, that you don't like to do, that suck your energy, that take energy from what you're actually really good at, or the coaching that you really like to do? And, I think as coaches or anybody running a business, I think we all think that we have to be at a certain level, making a certain income in order to hire help. And I don't know if it's the societal belief that we're in charge of someone else or we need to give them lots of hours, but there's I found so many people out there willing to do small jobs or small projects, or setting up my, certain systems that I have, whether it be Asana or Monday or ClickUp or anything like that. Instead of me watching endless videos on, no, pay someone that can get it done, or, whether it be Canva or anything else. I think the balance here is figuring out what you're good at. For me, it's coaching clients or spending time inside of my memberships, or interviewing someone on a podcast. To me, that generates more revenue for me than spending time in Canva doing PDFs and, things that are be accessible to my members. I mean, I can pay someone to do that. I think it's good to do the comparison.
Totally. I think that the things like Monday.com, like the project management softwares, there's always going to be someone better than you at setting those things up, right? As a coach, you don't get into business because you love software. It just happens to help eventually. And that's the stuff that makes people start resenting business, right? It's the nights you spend, banging your head against a keyboard. I got locked out of, so we run a Facebook ads agency, and I got locked out of Facebook on my computer, right? Because long-ish story, but I had a new phone and all the authentication codes were getting sent to my old phone, and it was a nightmare. I didn't do anything wrong. It's just like, I messed up a little bit, and then it meant I was just
in jail.
Not a good thing. Well, my account was still there. I just couldn't get into it. And so I actually did what you just said. I kind of trying to do all these things I didn't know how to do. And then I found on Upwork, which is like a beautiful freelancing site for anyone who hasn't used it. And I found a whole bunch of ethical hackers, which is a job. Ethical hackers. That title. Yeah, who were reverse engineering and got me back into my Facebook account. And, I think I paid the guy $300, and then he just did some wizardry and I'm back in. And that was stressing me out so much until I just was like, I wonder if someone can do this for me. And hey, presto, they absolutely can. So I guess you said that you're really good at interviewing people on your podcast. I think your podcast is great, by the way. I listened to some chunks of a few different episodes, and I'm really, really impressed at the way you package it up. I'm guessing that that's something that you've outsourced, the branding and the producing of your podcast.
It is. Yes. We were working with the Ultimate Creative Podcast producer. So they do all of our graphics and all of the videos, and yes, all of the emails as well. Because those are all the things that I didn't love to do when I started podcasting. I thought, let me research how to edit a podcast. And then I was up at 3 a.m. trying to edit my own podcast and getting frustrated, being up, impatient with my kids in the morning. All that is not worth it. I think that's what I had trouble understanding. And also the letting go of the control. If you're a little bit of a control freak, it is not, you do not easily welcome people to help you. So you have to let that, if you want to grow, you got to let that go.
If you want to grow, you've got to let it go. That's a nice little mic drop quote from Julie Greenham, ladies and gentlemen. I love that. And whatever they've done with your show is amazing. If you guys go to Julie's website, juliegreenham.com, you've got like timestamps in your podcast of like where to find certain tips and certain messages. It's absolutely genius. So Ultimate Creative Podcast people, we're looking at you. And Christian, who edits my podcast now, don't worry, bro. we're not getting rid of you, man. Christian's the best. He was actually my first hire to edit the podcast, because I was doing the same thing as you. Love the podcast, great for marketing, and then just all the editing the videos and watching it back and having to listen to your own voice. I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So Christian finds these like beautiful little golden nuggets and then puts them in templates and stuff. Let's get onto that podcast, because it's the I had it written down, the name of your podcast. It's the Quiet Powerhouse Podcast is the name of your show. And you interview a lot of experts, you do a lot of solo episodes. When you first started, were you surprised at how many people were able to help you out on the topic of being a quiet powerhouse, being an introvert in business? Where did you find these people? And how did you get started with that journey on this specific topic?
I think as I myself discovered that I was quiet and introverted very, very late in life. I'm 45 now. I discovered it at maybe 39, 40 years old. And I thought that completely changes the way that I run a business. There's the way that I show up, the boundaries that I need to have, the way that I need to market. Because I think for us is, we see successful business owners and we think, oh, they're extroverted. They love to talk about their offers. And as much as I appreciate that, that just is not working for me. It's not aligned. And so I would have friends or, peers come to me and they said, you're great. You're calm and you're quiet, but you're great at articulating what you do, or you're able to get people together that are, like-minded people and thinking the same. And I thought, well, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a lot of people who think like me. So I just, those people on the podcast are peers that I know, peers that I trust, people that I've worked with, coaches that I've worked with, and also clients as well. So that's how I gathered those introverts, rope them in.
I'm muted. Yeah, it's a great way to meet people. Hey, the podcast, great way for networking. Have you found that it's been a good tool to actually go out and find new people to work with as well?
It is, yes, because I think that for, especially to any coaches listening too, if you have to find your sort of vehicle in the way that you're most comfortable speaking to your audience. So if it's video, that's great. For me, it was podcasting. I love the fact that I'm in my bubble, sharing my thoughts and articulating them. And that's it's very intimate. It goes into people's ears. They can listen to it anywhere. And it's a great way to showcase what you're all about and what your personality is. It sort of lets people see if they want to work with you from afar, but still get so much value.
Absolutely. And how much can you really get from someone from a curated 30-second Instagram reel? Like how much can you really learn about someone? Now, I think it's funny how we can spend so much time trying to come up with the perfect caption or the perfect 30-second video, because I make reels as well. But then you do a 40-minute podcast and you just find this stuff just flows out of you when you're not trying. It's really interesting. Well, one of the topics I loved on your show was it was about, can you repeat the same topic in your marketing? Can you keep talking about the same thing over and over again? And we're marketers, and I think I would just love you to give your answer to the audience. Can you marketing and keep it engaging?
I think so. And I feel again that took me so long. Everything that I share on the podcast are things that I've experienced or things that I figured out or, have taken suggestions from other people. And I think that sometimes we can get really overwhelmed with content creation. And I think we can believe that we have to only create new content all the time. But we're basically repeating the same things. Our values of our business are sort of, we have some pillars. And if we could just keep talking about that and just sharing very different stories, either personal or other people or clients, we're saying the same thing, but they're fresh new stories for someone else. And what is it they say? I think you need to hear something 10 to 12 times in order for something to sink in. And that's sort of what I learned from other people as well, is, having the same thing repeated, but in very different ways or through different stories as well.
Gary Vee is a great example. Just,
Yes.
NFTs or whatever he's on at the time. What happened there?
Oh, I have no idea. I was wondering if it was me or you. I didn't know. I was just frozen.
Yeah, the window shut down and then it opened again. We're recording again. We're live again. I wonder if we were on the whole time. I wonder
Oh,
where
I
it
hope
dropped off.
so. Oh, I hope
No,
so. I'm sorry, I didn't see it close down.
No, we were definitely on until the last kind of 10 seconds, but I'm just wondering, like, everything that you said, if that came across, but I feel like we're onto something just then, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. We were talking about marketing. If it's in there, it's in there. If it's not, this is the internet. We're talking about marketing. I want to touch on a topic that you've touched on before, which is social media comparison. So comparing yourself to other people on social media, it's one of the most vile and harmful things we can do to ourselves these days. And the mental health statistics absolutely reflect that, especially in kind of like, teenagers coming up now, and just the rates of just anxiety and depression and worse that we're seeing in kids and younger generations these days. In business, though, it can be very, very similar. You can always be looking at the person with the better branding, with the better lifestyle, the bigger audience. Like when I was on your podcast page, I was like, I'm jealous of Julie's podcast. This is awesome. There's so many more things we should be doing. But I pulled myself back. So how do we get over, consistently comparing ourselves to the businesses around us? And are you guilty of doing that yourself, Julie Greenham?
Sometimes I have to admit I fall into the trap of looking on social media, but I think it happened a lot at the beginning. I think now I'm very secure in my values, what I offer. I think it's tuning that message, what are we offering to other people? And then when we start working with other people, if you're noticing results, that brings you more validation as well. But I think the key to all of this, of course, it's boundaries. And I don't go on social media in the morning. I follow very specific accounts. I try to reduce the noise with the news, because that can, make you go into a negative pitfall. But I think it's really focusing on what you're good at and what you bring, in that you can also, because honestly, Alex, at this point, as well as I do, that nobody's inventing anything new. So it's you sharing what you're good at and people resonating with that, and someone else can share the same thing, but they're speaking a different language, they're speaking to different people, demographics. And I just think owning that, and how you own it, how you become confident and worthy and have some self-esteem, is the connection to self. Whether, I think we all need to move back and be silent and still. I do this 10-15 minutes every day, because that is where your worthiness comes from, your self-validation, your courage, your resilience. I mean, I think if I would describe, people often ask me, what do you really need to succeed in business? And I always say, you need to be resilient. You need to be resilient to no's, to judgment, to people saying things about you, people disagreeing with you. And how do you do that is that connection to self, whether it's meditating, journaling. You just need quiet time.
Huge for introverts and otherwise, right? Everyone needs it 100%. I don't know where I fall on that spectrum of introvert extrovert thing. I think I'm sure there's a middle ground.
Maybe you're an ambivert.
An ambivert, yeah.
Ambivert.
Very non-committal, straight down the middle. I don't want to put any labels on myself, but the first thing I absolutely loved then was like, you don't check social media in the morning. That when I started doing that, what a freaking change, especially when we've got clients who can contact us via social media, right? Yes. And you wake up to someone else's problems. What does your morning look like now that your kids are a little older and you probably have a little less, a few less jobs to do in the morning? How is your morning routine to set you up and feel amazing?
Yes. Now that they can brush their teeth on their own, they can make their own bowl of cereal. I actually I used to wake up at the same time as them. And then when they wake you up, it's just chaotic. So you're sort of on their timeline and their schedule. So now I wake up earlier. I meditate for 10 minutes. Sometimes I journal and I do a little bit of stretches and exercises. And I always figure out how to visualize, whether it's through the meditation that's a little bit longer, or writing down where I'm going and my vision, or either my vision for the day or for the month ahead. So I do that very quickly. It's maybe 20-25 minutes, just because I'm so busy. But I just like to get centered in the morning before I go into the emails, before I go on social media, because I believe that you need to center yourself in order to sort of be ready and fresh for everybody else. Because when you're unbalanced, especially when mama is unbalanced, nothing goes well. You're showing up on coaching calls and you're thinking of, that missing person that you saw in the news, or just negative things, or
powerful. I like that it's not one of those endless 4-hour morning routines you get from the business gurus, where you got to do 1,000 push-ups and like 15 read a book, and then cold shower, and then a hot shower, and then a cacao ceremony and a crystal or whatever, all these things. 20 minutes of just doing what makes you feel good and gives you some time before you start dealing with other people's stuff. Massive. I don't my phone's on airplane mode until 8 a.m. So usually from about 8 or 9 p.m. So I try to make it 8. And lately I've just been a little busier, so I've been pushing my boundaries a bit, but massive, especially when you wake up by choice rather than when the kids wake you up. What a freaking difference that makes, right? Far out. That's a huge tip. That extra 20 minutes that you've chosen for yourself, massive tip that you may feel like it's going to make you more tired getting 20 minutes less sleep, but you wake up in a whole different state. So
it's true. And until you do it, I think that you realize how powerful it is. And sometimes at the beginning, it's hard to keep up. You fall back into your patterns. You want to press snooze. And I mean, we've all been there, but I think you realize as your day goes along, how much better and fresh you are, and how much better energy that you have, and how you're just more present.
Yeah. You're totally making me feel bad today, because I stayed up late working last night. And then just today I was just, I could hear, one of my daughters on the monitor, and I was just pushing it as far as I could. So I woke up and not in a bit of a grouchy mood, but it doesn't happen very often. So social media, I noticed that most of your content comes from the podcast. which is really, really cool. And have you noticed that when you've moved into content that you prefer to make, have you noticed a difference in the way people respond to it?
I do. We've been off social media for the summer as well because the podcast has been on hiatus too. But I do definitely. That's one of those things where when you outsource it, people again do it so much better than you and so much faster. So sometimes you can spend 5 hours doing something that takes someone else 30 minutes. So I think the social media is also trying to be intentional and what services do you have coming up? What are you currently offering? And sort of creating your content around that so people can really understand, what you do and how it relates to them and the results that you bring.
Yeah. No, I love that. You got to, I'm just getting a consistent, repeated message of you've got to run a business that feels good for you, basically, and put your energy in the way, in the places you want to put it, and figure out how to get help with the rest of it. Because that feels like a real sustainable business that can have longevity and make you feel good in the long term, even if you sacrifice a little bit of income here and there, which is good.
Exactly. And just to give you an example, Alex, is my close circle of clients in the membership and people on the podcast know about this. But last year, I got divorced. And so I shared that I'm a very open book because I feel like it goes very much with the business. Everything we do in our personal life really spills into the business side of things with our energy and time and schedule and everything. And, last year, I think we posted half of what we usually do. I took a break this summer, and still last year we made double the income. So it is possible to have a way to, figure out how to do business that works for you. And we don't have to always be on social media. And, there's other avenues and other ways of doing that, of increasing your income and still reaching the people that you're wanting to.
Hugely true. And in the coaching space as well, we don't need 20,000 customers. We need like 30 and we're good, and that's a really successful coaching business. So I noticed that neither of us have huge social media followings. Neither of us are out there with enormous brands, but we both have nicely ticking along businesses. And I guess it comes from just speaking to a core group of people, keeping them engaged and just building that trust over time. So, I guess the last question would be, do you share those vulnerable personal details about yourself as part of building trust with an audience and allowing them to feel, I suppose, that like they can approach you and that you'd be a good person to work with?
I never thought of it that way, but because you mentioned it, I could see how that would be relatable and perhaps make me more approachable. I share it because, again, going back to the social media and comparing, it's, we don't have all perfect lives. So why show that? Why not show the real side of things and show the bumps on the road or the roller coaster? Because what you see sometimes on social media is most likely what you're not going to get when the camera turns off or when the video is done. And so I just wanted to share in case anybody else is, I totally felt like that was relating to business. And I think that when you get comfortable, when you're not shameful with the story that you have or background or history, and you can share it to the world, it always helps someone, even if it helps one person. So me dealing with those feelings and, of shame, of guilt, of all those things, of regret. And when I dealt with that, then I could share it with others comfortably.
Amazing. And using, what I imagine would be a pretty shitty experience and then turning it into, using your energy and using your skill as a coach to then turn that into a helpful message for other people who maybe don't know how to deal with that. So I really, really appreciate that you did that. I think that's really cool. And yeah, I suppose I think I probably only share good stuff on social media, and the rest of it I just kind of leave it. Obviously bad shit happens to everyone, right? And I try to be authentic as possible, but
well, next time your twins have a meltdown, you can just get that phone out and create a reel from it.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like some people in the coaching space, at least on my Facebook feed, and this might, I'm not sure what this says about me. Some people in the coaching space put up really gnarly posts on Facebook for the exact same reason, and makes me very uncomfortable sometimes when I see. I've seen a few women post about like like problems with like miscarriages and stuff like that, and I think it's super duper brave, and I think it probably says a lot more about me that I feel mega uncomfortable when I see these posts. And I think that's one of the reasons I try and I don't know what that is. I think you said the word empath before, and I think I really take on people's energy, and I really struggle if someone else is sad, and so I think it makes me sad. Is that what an empath is?
Yeah, that's being an empath is really taking it on, like you're in that person's shoes and feeling it. Yeah, I think it also relates back to, if you're talking about content creation or sharing personal details, when it comes to that, I think it's sharing what you think your audience would relate to. And I think whatever you're sharing, bringing it back to what you do and why it's important to them. So it's making that connection too, and not sharing just random things,
Yeah, which is obviously another trap that we can fall into, feeling like we just need to document every part of our life and just put everything out there, even if it may not be relevant to business, just for the sake of posting. I think knowing what not to post is also really, really, it's like being able to say no to clients. It's like being able to sacrifice income. It just comes with maturity in business and experience, and knowing when, you don't need to put something out there. And I've noticed that, I mean, you've taken the month off, the summer off podcasting. I'm sure your business still exists, right? You still have clients, you still have income, and no one ever cares about your content as much as you do, is what I find.
So true. And that's so true. And I think that people will respect you more because, I love imperfect people. I love when people show me the behind the scenes, or how things really are and why they decided to make those decisions. And that gives me thought as to how can I apply this to my life, or I don't need to be a robot and, show up all the time, everywhere, every day. And
yeah, well, I think we've had a thoroughly imperfect podcast today. We've had some internet issues. I've definitely stumbled on a few questions that I thought I would get out in a better way. But today, maybe I'm just a bit tired today, but I've really, really enjoyed speaking with you today, Julie. I know that Julie did apologize. She usually has a better microphone, but now she's on the headphones. But we don't care about that stuff at all. You have provided content over and above, what could be attributed by just a slightly crisper audio quality. So thank you so much for being on the show with us today. I've given you a lot of praise for your show and your podcast and your website and your social media. I think it's all fantastic, even though the content doesn't directly apply to me. I was really absorbed by it this morning, looking through it all. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I hope it brings value to your viewers and listeners.
Absolutely. There's going to be, I've picked up some nuggets. I've had some big reminders about things that I probably could be doing better around my own energy and my own boundaries. And I think I'm going to head back in, jump in. That's the beautiful thing about the coaching space, is that if you can help a coach, then that then has a trickle down effect to their clients, and every piece of impact doesn't end there. It continues and ripples outwards to more and more people. So no matter who you've helped on this show, it's going to help a lot more people than just that person, I believe. So you're doing great things.
So true. Thank you.
You're amazing, Julie. Anyone who is listening or watching live, apologies, because that was a nightmare. But anyone who's on the recording, I think you got away with it. So thank you so much, guys. I'll be back here actually tomorrow with another episode of Coaches to the Moon. We're doubling up this week, and I cannot wait to see you there. Julie Greenham, once more, thank you so much for being on the show, and everyone else, thanks for